What's going on, guys? Today is a rather special video. Currently enjoying a nice family vacation here in the Dominican Republic, specifically in Punta Cana at the impressive spa and resort. I did a little bit of a record haul in the capital of Santo Domingo a few days ago, and I would like to take the opportunity while I'm here to review the records with you and hopefully get a little taste of some Dominican music and maybe might pique your interest to even visit the country through my musical discoveries. So what I typically do when I am visiting a new country or city is do a little bit of research on the musical history, and a genre that has been popularized in the Dominican Republic is merengue. And so throughout the streets, throughout resorts and hotels and all over around you, you'll hear some upbeat music, some syncopated beats. An instrument I discovered here is the guayira, which is a percussion instrument, which to me looks like a big tube that kind of has the texture of a cheese grater that's intended to be brushed by a metal brush, creating a little bit of like a scratchy sound, as well as a tambora drum, which is a bongo looking like drum that's played sideways, in addition to instruments like the accordion and the bass. So when I was doing my research on the local record shops in Santo Domingo, I stumbled upon a well-known one called Groove.do. They seem to be the most well-known record shop in the city. It is a rather small record shop with a modest selection, but I was quite impressed with the variety. They specialize mostly, obviously, in Latin music, but had a pretty decent selection of 80s, 90s rock and soul. Before coming to this trip, I went onto their website to discover what they had available that was produced within the Dominican Republic. When I entered the shop, I gave the owner my list. He spoke very fluent English and helped me to find these records on his own, took the time to do so. There was one record that was a little bit scratched up and dusted, so he cleaned it in his little machine, played it pretty much all the way through to see if any tracks would skip, and he presented it to me in a better condition than when he found it. So shout out to the owner for doing that so carefully. And with that, I'm going to open the piece of paper that the records were packed in and talk about the music with you. So the first record here is by Los Hermanos Rosario called Fuera de Serie. So they're one of the quintessential merengue groups originating from the Dominican Republic. They coincidentally performed the night we were there, so unfortunately didn't get a chance to check them out. A few hits include La Bomba and Esa Morena. This is not their most popular record to date, but they do include a lot of upbeat merengue tracks that are perfect to dance to and give off that quintessential merengue flair to it. This record was made in the 90s and is a great representation of that era's merengue music. Next up is an instrumental album by Luis Perez and his orchestra, or Luis Perez y su orquesta. This is not a well-known album by any means, but as I was looking up some records on the website, this one stuck out as something that represents, the 60s era of merengue music. What's particularly different about this era is that it features a little bit of mangolina music, which is similar to merengue, but just a bit more folky, similar dance vibes, and it originates from the more rural areas of the DR and is often accompanied by instruments such as the accordion, guitar, and the marimba, which creates a little bit of a harmonic and melodic backdrop. There's a type of merengue called merengue de orquestra, and that signifies that it's a rather large band that's producing the music with a heavy focus on the horn section, so that is what particularly stands out on this record. So if that's something that's up your alley, definitely give it a listen if you can get your hands on it. Next up is a rather new and exclusive record. This one is by a Dominican group called Retro Jazz. They do a series of jazz renditions of well-known Dominican music. This happens to be the 4th edition of their series, and this is actually the first one on vinyl, exclusively sold on Groove.do, so you can't get it anywhere else to my knowledge as of the date of this recording. When looking at the track list, there is a track by Juan Luis Guerra, who is probably the most famous merengue artist. I didn't get any records from him because they didn't have any in stock. If you are Dominican, I'm sure you'll recognize a handful of tracks on this album, but if you are new to the genre like myself, I think this is a great intro, especially if you are more into jazz. There are also vocals, so it's not just instrumentation. A great female vocal lead, which I can't recall the name of at the moment. But yeah, definitely check it out if you want something a bit more modern, jazzy, and a solid representation of Dominican music with a modern twist. Last up, I have a record that is not Dominican, but is pretty fun. It's by the group called Los Chicos, originally called Los Chicos de Puerto Rico, and as the name suggests, they are originally from Puerto Rico, but they were famous all over Latin America at the time. They had a rather short career because of their management and poor working conditions. One of their members, Chayana, went off to be a successful solo artist in Latin America. But the reason why this one stood out to me was that, to me, it reminded me of the Jackson 5 with a little bit of Latin flair to them. One of the tracks is called Seré Porque Te Amo. If you recall the Italian track that has become popular again called Seré Porque Te Amo by Ricky E. Poveri, this one includes a Spanish version of that shortly after the original was released. It adds a little bit of fun and positivity to this album. They also have some funky tracks like Puerto Rico, the opening track, which I can highly recommend. And they also have a little bit of a ballad called Ave Maria, which is not the one you're probably thinking of. It's a different version, but it's a bit slower compared to the rest of the tracks on the album. If you're looking for a diverse range of Latin pop tracks, definitely give these guys a listen, rather these boys a listen, and you will not be disappointed. Alright, so that wraps up my small record haul. I hope you learned a little thing or two about Dominican music, merengue music, some of the artists that I mentioned. If you have any recommendations, please let me know down in the comments. If I ever come back, I'll definitely give them a listen. But with that, I'm gonna soak up some more sun, and I will see you in the next video. Peace.